Meet James Carter, a lifelong advocate for youth development and community building. A proud Aliquippa Public Schools alum, James is not just an educator, he's a mentor who returned to coach the Lady Quips basketball team. With a bachelor's in secondary education and a master's in administration of justice from Edinburgh and Shippensburg universities, James embarked on a career spanning teaching, coaching, and juvenile justice roles. His 15-year tenure at the Milton Hershey School, including the role of Director of Home Life, reflects his commitment to shaping young lives. Beyond his professional roles, James actively serves in various community capacities. As a leader in Democratic committees, chairman of the former Harrisburg Mayor Linda Thompson's Subcommittee on Enhancing Public Safety and involvement in church ministries, he tirelessly works towards enhancing youth and community development. He previously served as the former Assistant Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Democratic Party Black Caucus. James believes in the power of unity and recognizes every child's unique skills. His volunteer work with initiatives like the 500 Men Reading Project underscores his commitment to children's education. With a joyful heart, James celebrates the growth of students he has mentored, emphasizing that every child has a purpose. Join James H. Carter in building a strong, united community that nurtures the potential in every individual.
And the political power empowerment plan is basically a 5-step plan. I purposely kept it simple so that everyone could be involved. In it, we have 5 steps. The first step is voter registration. Okay, in voter registration, we basically must make sure that every eligible member of the family is registered to vote. Now, they do not have to be registered in the same party. They may have different ideologies, but everyone should basically accept the responsibility of their right to vote. Okay, everyone is to accept that responsibility. It's one that has been handed down to us. It's one that people have died. It's one that people have shed a lot of blood for us to have. So having to have a reason to vote, I feel that we have an obligation to vote. So everyone in the household, first of all, have to be registered in order for us to have family political empowerment. The second point becomes very important as well, and that's information gathering. Okay, we have to be able to know the political system is for which we are electing people. I often ask people, do you know your local governmental congressman, not congressman, but councilman, board of supervisors? Do you know your auditors? Do you know your school board members? These are important people in your life. And keeping that information in your mind becomes very important, just as if you know your county commissioners. Do you know your row officers? Do you know your state legislators or your state senator or your governor? Have you written to them? This information is important. So we move up to the ultimate scale of the federal government. Do you know your president? Do you know your vice president? Do you know your congressman? Do you know your senator? Have you written to them? Getting that information is important because then you go to the next step of information gathering, because you have elections that are coming up. And trust me when I tell you that this election that we're getting ready to be involved in is probably going to be the most important election in our lifetime, because as you probably heard on numerous newscasts, on numerous talk shows, in this election, a lot is on the table as far as our government continuing to exist as we currently know it. No, and do we want, no, what is it that you really want in your president? What is it that you want in your senator? And I'm probably involved in one of the most important congressional elections in the state of Pennsylvania, because Scott Perry is my congressman. Okay. I've had a conversation with Scott Perry once. Needless to say, we never had another one because of various things that's gone on. But I've written to him on a number of occasions. And I've written to him because I had the information to write him on. So when we look at information gathering, we're talking about each family member being assigned one candidate per office to make sure that we gather the information. Now, one thing that becomes very important, the information that you get can't be opinionated. You're looking for factual information. So when you do your research, you want to get citations. If they're giving statistics, where did they get the statistics from? And are they viable resources for your information? Because you're going to have to back up what you present to the family. Now, when you look at all of this and you try to put it together, you have to ask yourself the question, I have a position upon which I will stand, but can I be called upon to oppose that position if necessary? Because if you understand why you like something, you have to understand what the faults are in it, or you have to know what the good parts in it if you fault a system to make sure that you totally understand. So when you're doing your research, not only think about what you like about what's being said, think about how someone may oppose it so that you will be ready to answer those questions. Now, you have the safety of your home to do this in when you're talking to each other, but you have to look at both sides of the issue. Before something, yes, but understand why someone else may be against it. Then you can have a viable discussion. And that leads us into the third point, which is communication. After you gathered the information, which I hope that everyone took seriously in what they were doing, and also I hope that even if you have middle school students that are apt in using their computers and their devices, that they can take this time to actually take part in finding information and bringing it back. You'd be surprised what those young people can do, with the computer. But after you gathered your information and you're ready to talk about it, you can come together as a family unit to communicate what you found with each other. And as you look at that information, be willing to talk, be willing to have discussions about what you found. How will it affect this particular family with this person's attitude? Because what you will really realize is the fact that most candidates will tell you all about themselves. And when you hear them, you basically should be in a position of believing what they said. I was struck the other night when I heard Mr. Trump on the in one of his gatherings state the fact that blacks will purchase his shirts, they will purchase his T-shirts. That's the way that they know that I support them. And I told him, I said, if you heard that and you do not understand what he's saying, you need to take a look at the premise of it and deal with that. Deal with yourself internally. If you got upset, why did you get upset? If you agreed, why did you agree? If you didn't agree, why would someone else agree with that? Because you're going to run into people that do. Okay, so you know for a fact. But as my dad would say, that's their expectation. That is his expectation of what he see that the Black community would want in him. And they can identify with him because of that. the message that was given was very clear. So can you discuss that with your family? Can you discuss why someone would agree with him? Remember one thing that I told you from the outset when we talked about the fact that in cultural competencies and social competencies, if you don't develop a strong suit within inside yourself, someone else will create that for you. That's his creation. That's who he is. That's what he believes in. And the question is that what I would want from a president? I understand you. I understand why you feel the way you do. I just can't accept it. And it's like that with all of the candidates that are that are in the rim. So when you get together with your family, communicate, talk. Now, this third point is something that once you develop the ability to communicate with one another, you take it to your normal realm of life. Sit down and talk about issues as they come up. Know and understand that you can talk to each other about your feelings. Your children are going to have some different feelings about issues than you. Can you discuss them? Can you sit down and actually develop a sense of understanding? Your neighbors are going to have some different views. I once talked to a young lady when I was canvassing, and she told me, in this neighborhood, there's not many Democrats. And I just looked at her and said, do you know your neighbors? And she said, yes, I know them. I said, do you know the lady next door? She said, yes. I said, what do you talk about? And then she said, what do you mean? I said, I know you don't talk about politics. And she said, well, how would you know that? I said, because you didn't know she was a Democrat. You didn't know the neighbor over here was a Republican. I said, so what I've asked people to do is to come together, be a part of your community, meet and mingle and talk. Because once again, when you come to the table of discussion, you only have one or two positions. You can be at the table, an active member, or you can be the subject being discussed or the menu that they're preparing. It's just that simple. And that's why we have to communicate effectively. The fourth part is actually voting. Once you've gathered all your information, once your family has sat down, once you're registered, that's leading to the event of voting. I often tell people that if you can, vote together, okay? You have to first decide how you're going to vote. Are you going to do a vote by mail, or are you going to vote in person? Sit down and discuss who you want to vote for. The decision that you make is on you. You may vote one way, your parents may vote another way. Vote. Voting is the issue because that is the only way that you can protect your positions. So if you decide that you're going to go to the polls to vote, go as a family unit. It's very powerful when you walk in there. Mother, father, son, daughter, nephew, niece, cousin. Go as a family unit and vote. Okay? After you're done voting, if you go first thing in the morning, go to breakfast. If you go in the middle of the day, if you can, go to lunch. If you go in the evening, go to dinner. But communicate, still communicate with each other, because that is your culminating event for that part. Now, the fifth part becomes equally more important. James Brown used to have a song where he said, everybody over there, get on up. Everybody in here, over there, get into it. Everybody in here, get involved, get involved, get involved. Now, when you vote, do not go home and sit on the couch and wait for the next election. Yes, we have an election twice a year. Every 6 months, we have an election in the spring and in the fall. That's a good point. But you cannot go home and sit down. The fifth part is probably the most important part. Get and stay involved. You can be involved. You can run for office. You can ask to be on different committees and commissions within inside your community, your county. You can be a committee person for your party, but get involved. You may not have the desire to hold office, but you can be an active member of your party. Get involved. Be able to meet the needs of the community. Getting involved also involves you writing to your congressman, writing to your senators, both state and local. It involves making communication with your board of supervisors or your council. Don't sit down and complain. Research the issue and actually have communication with them about it. If you walked into the council meeting, would your mayor know you? Would your city council members know you? Did they have information from you to let them know that this person is coming and they mean business? Okay. Get to the point that you know the people. Some of us don't even know of. Some of us can't even say who they are. But you have to get to that point that you can make those decisions and talk to them, write to them, let them know your opinion on the issue. Then, and only then, will you be able to say, I'm disgruntled. These things haven't gone right for me. Then and only then you will know what they can do. We upset with the president, but does he have any capability of doing what we want him to do? We sent the president to office, but we did not send a Senate. We did not send a Congress there in sufficient numbers to help him get done the job that he needs to do. And it goes all the way down the line. You send your governor to the office to be the governor, but if he has a split Senate and House, he's going to run in opposition. So if you send your legislators, if you send your executive, send your legislators. If you send your people to your local governmental office, you go and you let them know exactly what they need. It is then that you become empowered. It is then that your voice will be heard. It is then that you can sit back and say, yes, they represent me. And if they don't, I will confront the issue. I will not just be upset. I will confront the issue. The whole idea is to become empowered within inside your family and within inside yourself to move your needs forward. Okay? We can't ask for more than that. Okay? We can't ask for more than that. But when we do speak, if we've done the research, if we've communicated, if we voted, if we've been involved, people will know what our desires are. And we can hold them accountable for being our representatives. Thank you. I'm glad I had the opportunity to talk. If you have any questions, you can they put them in the chat, Mike?
Yeah, sure. They can put it in the chat.
Okay, if you have any questions, you can place those questions in the chat and we will answer them for you.
They can also raise their hand too.
Okay.
Okay. Well, the first question is, hold it. We've got James. I'm gonna allow him to ask the question. Hello, James.
Yes.
Can you ask the question?
Yes.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone.
Yes, I can.
Brother Carter, this is Pastor Matt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so many people, first of all, great presentation. many people are not aware of the changing laws as far as those who are considered ex-offenders, especially those even with misdemeanors. Could you highlight some of those if you're aware of some of the legalities or the eligibility of those who are eligible to vote? Because many people may have a family member who assumes they can't vote because of quote unquote a record. And so, is there anything you could educate us on as far as that?
Sure. In the state of Pennsylvania, you can have a record. You can be adjudicated found to be uh, guilty of a crime, and you can vote. The only one that you can't really vote is the fact that if you committed a felony and you're in prison. Okay. Other than that, if you're not in prison, and even if you're in prison, like if you're in the Dauphin County Jail, your county jails, and it is not a high crime, you can vote. And I think there are different groups in Dauphin County that work with people in prison, to get that vote. Now, you can't run for office, on some situations, if you're found guilty of various crimes in the state of Pennsylvania, especially if they, no, if they're dealing with finance and things of that nature. If anything is showing you to be unworthy or, justifiably honest in what you do, they know you can't run for some offices until you've cleared those particular things off your record. But as far as voting goes, you can vote in the state of Pennsylvania. Okay. Unless you're in prison, unless you had a certain felonies on it. But the best thing, one of the things I ask that people do, there's different information that's available at your county offices about registration. There's information online. If you go to what is that, pa.gov, and you can put in the questions about voting, and you can get the correct answer for your particular situation. Most of the county offices will talk to people about their position that they have at the current time.
Okay. Any more questions? I do have one question, James. When did you come up with the family empowerment plan? Why did you initially do it?
Well, when I initially did it, I did it for my precinct here in Dauphin County. I'm the committeeman for precinct 15. It's the largest precinct in Derry Township, the fifth largest in the county. We had a situation where I was at a voter disadvantage. And I feel that I had to get as many people out to the polls. I don't look at the fact that I'm outnumbered. I usually look at the percentage that I need of my voters to come out in order for us to win the precinct as far as the election is concerned. And I felt that where I had voters, if I can get the whole families out of the people that are eligible to vote, one, it's going to increase my numbers. And two, we may be able to beat them just by the sheer number of who we have coming out. And what I did, I figured out that I needed for the registrations that I needed 15% more of my people out than the other groups that are coming out. Then I realized the fact that, at that time, the independents were very valuable. So I went out to get them involved. Then I passed it on to a few other politically motivated people across the state and say, hey, use it. And some have. And they won because they've maximized the vote. Okay. We have to maximize the vote. And that was the reason why I put it together, so that I could try to get more people in my precinct out to the polls.
Okay. All right, James, thank you so much. Are there any more questions? Please raise your hand if it is. I think it was an excellent presentation. I think your results have been stellar, and I know dairy is one of the leading areas I know in Dauphin County, having been there before. And, you know, we should emulate this. I think it's important for people to see. But thank you so much, James. And
Well,
right, thank you so much. We do appreciate that. We will send copies of the empowerment program out to everyone. I just want to do a quick shot so everybody can see what it looks like. We got 1 through 5. Okay, and we'll make sure everybody's got a copy of the entire thing so everybody can start using it. Okay,
yeah,
because I think one of the most important things you said to me was it's important when you vote to make sure you just don't go home and sit your butt down. Right?
that is key. No,
That's
that is key. Once again, you want to at least let everybody know what your thoughts are on the matter. The other key is it's okay to write to these people, okay, and let them know your positions. Oddly enough, they pay attention to it. Some of the time, their staff will read them and put the information forward, but they have your position, down with them.
okay.
Okay. The one
Okay.
other key, though,
Sure.
is the fact that we cannot be one issue voters because there's always more than one issue that it can, that you need to address in your voting. Don't not vote because of one issue. Stay attuned and make sure that the decision that you make is proper and in order.
Well, that brings up a whole different question. One issue voters, because oftentimes you'll find that some Black people will be one issue voters and they may just be focusing because they're religious on abortion.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an important point to understand. We just can't be one issue voters, because when you look at what's coming and when you look at Trump and what represents, I did a little video of 13 reasons that you need to really consider as opposed to the one thing. And it's important for us to understand he's coming in with white supremacists. He's coming in with Stephen Miller. He's coming in with the other Steve Bannon. And what those guys did was, from day one, allowed the police to run rampant on the community. He has a history of the Central Park Five. He's got a history of being sued in 1973 for not renting to Black people. He's got a history of actually taking out an ad and saying he needs those people to be hung or basically killed, even when they were exonerated. This is the man that people, as I talk to younger people and I talk to other folks, I sometimes I call them hoteps because they think they're so smart. They're trying to drop knowledge on me about the Democratic Party, and I'm saying to them, help me understand, why would you go with this guy? Do you understand his history? Why is history important?
Well, history is important because what is the saying? If a person tell you who they are, believe them. And Joe Madison always say, watch with a third eye and listen with a third ear. That's one of the reasons why I have two basic techniques that I use when I'm talking to people. I look in your eyes and I listen to your mouth. The eyes cannot lie, but the mouth can. So you listen with that third ear. You don't only hear what people are saying, you hear what they're not saying. Okay, when you hear it, you understand it. Okay, but you also know the situation, and if you listen with a third ear and see with a third eye, you'll be able to see. I tell you, look into the eyes. I have a criminologist background, and one of the things they taught us is the fact that the eyes won't lie. Okay, and you often hear people say that, but in reality, it's true. But you have to gather complete information. Don't just listen to what someone says because it could just be an opinion. Always substantiate what's being said. It's like I said, Donald Trump did not know pretty much what he was doing the first time. Trust me when I tell you that his people, the people that are supporting him this time, are not going to be the same ones that support him the next time. And trust me, I tell you, he'll know what he's doing now because he's had some taste of success. He's been burned. Okay. But listen with a third ear, see with a third eye. Look beyond what you know. Hear beyond what you hear. That way you can make the right decision. Is it true? Is it just? Is it merciful? Let's say Micah 6:8. That's the way to go. What does God require of us? But that we live justly, we love mercy, and we walk humbly with our God. We've got to be aware. We have to be awake. Okay.
Thank you so much. And with that, I'm sure that everybody will be happy to see this. We will actually put part 2 on video. We've got part 1 we're editing right now, and we'll have a full presentation for everything. But right now, next, thank you so much, James.
Good evening. Good evening. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Wonderful. Good evening. Happy Black History Month, everyone. My name is Corinne Landauer. I am the co-director of the Montgomery County Chapter Democratic Black Caucus. We have been doing some amazing things in terms of uplifting and working in furtherance of our mission, of our organization's mission of uplifting and supporting Black candidates, qualified Black candidates. And we have been highlighting local Montgomery County Black history. Every day we've been sending out an email to our contact list highlighting Montgomery County history, past, present, and future. We are so proud to have wrapped that today with our first Black female commissioner, Jamila H. Winder, being our highlight of today. And the gentleman I bring to you, having been highlighted in past days, Mr. Oliver Kennedy, OC, as he is affectionately called, is our membership director and has been highlighted because of his tremendous work. I know we talked about data collection. Someone had brought that up. OC has been a champion of data collection since the inception of the caucus. He has championed an activist code in Vote Builder and has made that code available across all campaigns, across all of the county, so that we can identify Black voters and be able to reach out because to the point that was made earlier, data collection is key. And it is key to being able to understand who we have out in the community, and that's how our opponent has been able to win and be successful in the past. So we want to be able to be armed with data, be armed with voters, especially Black voters, because we are the most loyal voting bloc that the Democratic Party has. So to be able to identify Black voters in the third largest county in the state, in this swing state of Pennsylvania, is an amazing task. And I know that OC has been, well, I'll let Mike get into that, but OC has been an amazing champion of data collection, amazing champion of membership, to increase membership in the caucus. And I'm so proud to bring him to the stage this evening. So happy Black History Month. And I bring to you Mr. Oliver O.C. Kennedy.
Hello, OC. OC.
Hey, I was having a little trouble unmuting. I was clicking on the wrong button.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Corinne. I appreciate that wonderful introduction. And thank you to all of the attendees for attending tonight, and to Michael for putting on this panel to get information out to the community. I truly enjoyed Mr. Carter's presentation on family empowerment plan. And I appreciate him putting that together. I think is very powerful, if it is implemented, and the key is implementation. And another key is having a strategy. Mr. Carter talked about that, and what I'm going to talk about tonight is a different strategy that, as Corinne said, is focused on data collection. So what I want to do is kind of just provide you with some information. Hopefully it's information that you'll be able to take and use in your communities, wherever they are. So I'm going to start by sharing a screen that see, hopefully will work. Can everyone see what's on the screen?
Yes.
All right. So just to give you a little background on the Montgomery County chapter of the Democratic Black Caucus. Corinne is the co-director, and as she said, I'm the recruitment director for the Pennsylvania Democratic Black Caucus Montgomery County chapter. And we are a wholly aligned subsidiary of the Pennsylvania Democratic Black Caucus, of which Michael Laws is the chair. Our mission is to create political and economic equity, and our goals focus on building our membership, promoting voter turnout, registering new voters, and training and electing Black leaders. So that's what we're about as an organization, and we have done more things than I can enumerate this evening, within Montgomery County. From putting on Juneteenth's event, having fundraisers for local Black candidates, doing, we have, done voter registration drives, you name it. We have done it. But my focus tonight is on an initiative that we began working on, and shortly after we were formed as an organization in December of 2021. And that is a process known as the Black Voter Identification and Documentation Initiative. So what's involved there? It is to identify and to document to the fullest extent possible all Black voters within our county of Montgomery, which is, as Corinne said, the third largest county in the state of Pennsylvania. So we intend to identify every Black voter and to document that and have that information available for us to use in a database going forward. We would be able to use that to recognize the voters for being involved in the election process. We'll be able to use it for looking to identify candidates to run for office, to do voter registration within households, to help move things like the family empowerment plan out into communities. So when we began talking about this in December of 2021, the first thing we thought to do is, okay, well, how do you do something like this? Well, there's a whole bunch of ways you could do it. You could, have meetings and bring together, Black voters and, get your information that way. You could go out and ask people, who do you know that's a Black voter? All right, and we're going to utilize every possible method to do that. But what we thought, what we came up with as the lowest hanging fruit for implementing a process like this. Okay, what do you need? You need a database to put the information into, and you need individuals to gather the information. So we thought, well, all right, what database should we use? Well, there's already a database of voters, all voters, and it's known as Vote Builder. It already exists, so why recreate the wheel? Why can't we just use Vote Builder as it is? Well, Vote Builder does document ethnicity, but we found out that the ethnicity information within Vote Builder is completely wrong.
Please explain that one. Go into detail. How you challenged me on it.
Well, let's put it this way. 75 to probably 90% of the ethnicity information in Vote Builder is incorrect. No one seems to know how it got in there, into Vote Builder. But what we found from empirical evidence from going out street to street and looking, comparing what's in Vote Builder to who the voters are, we found that if you were in a white neighborhood and you went out and identified the Black voters in that neighborhood, they're in Vote Builder 75 to 100% documented as white. And if you went into Black neighborhoods and you identified white voters, they're incorrectly identified predominantly as Black. So no one can explain that, why that is. But you can't. Vote Builder is completely useless in terms of being able to be used for our purposes to reach out to Black voters. So it's now necessary for us to scrub that database to correct the information that's in there. So I don't know if that adequately explains why we can use the database, but we can't use it as it currently exists. Hopefully everyone understands that. If not, put a question in the chat and I can explain it further. But it isn't necessary, but we can use the database, but we need to update that database.
Yeah, can I explain? Can I jump in?
Mike.
Sure. Yep. So what happened was, I remember we had a race in 2021, and I was using activist code. As a matter of fact, we were actually trying to reach Black voters in Pittsburgh, and we thought we were doing well. We thought it was accurate. And then OC challenged me, and he said, hey, you know what? Your database is wrong. And he went around and tested it out. And he was persistent. And I kept saying, no, it's got to be right. And he proved to me it was wrong. And so it meant that all of the data and all the information we were sending out, we thought was reaching the Black community, wasn't. And those messages were targeted specifically for Black people. So this, when he talked about this process and how we needed to straighten it out, I said absolutely, because it's so important to understand messaging is key. Messaging takes care of everything. And if you got the wrong message to the wrong people, it's just not going to work. And that's where we were before OC came in and fought for this process and set the entire thing up.
Okay, well, I wasn't going to say anything about that, but since you did, so we needed to have a workforce to gather the information. So we have a database that we can use. We just have to scrub it. And so the lowest hanging fruit as far as a workforce to do this would be people who are already in the process of talking to voters. So as we were looking at developing the process, we said, well, who's already out there talking to voters every election cycle? It's committee people. I happen to be a committee person. James tonight is told us that he's a committee person in his area. Committee people are the most important people in the party. We're the ones that are out there every election cycle, knocking on the doors, talking to the voters, and we're the ones identifying, Black voters when they're out there. But we weren't doing anything with that information. So we said, well, let's, how can we use this volunteer workforce that's, hundreds and maybe thousands of individuals within Montgomery County that are out there every election cycle. So the idea came up of using a activist code that could be used when the canvasser is at the door to document when they come in contact with the Black voter. And that code would allow the voter record to be updated correctly within Vote Builder. So that is what we landed on as the first step in this process of identifying and documenting Black voters, to have an activist code that volunteers can use when they're out in the field and on an ongoing basis. So beginning in January of 2022, during the first election cycle, the primary of that year, we started this process. And the process is ongoing. It'll be ongoing for as long as necessary to completely scrub the database. That's the goal that was established. So I'm going to quickly run through what it took to make that happen. I hope I don't bore you, but this is what was necessary. And it's what you really wouldn't have to do all of this, because by us having done it on a statewide basis during the 2022 election cycle and 2023 election cycle, statewide, for statewide campaigns, this is already done. What you would have to do is get the activist code in your Vote Builder within your county at the local level. But for the state level, we've pretty much done that. So the steps involved were to create at the county level, which MCDC stands for Montgomery County Democratic Committee. We needed to have an activist code created and then shared with our committee persons and local groups organizing efforts on a local basis. In Montgomery County, we have 15 different areas within the county. It's a huge county, and these 15 areas, they each have numerous municipalities within each area. So first off, I will just say it wasn't just a simple process of reaching out to the Montgomery County Democratic Committee and asking them to do this. Corinne can attest to this was probably the most difficult step, was to get their buy-in. And we went back and forth, on numerous occasions, with first they're saying they were going to do it, then saying they weren't going to do it. And, the make a long story short, we finally, got what we wanted, which was an activist code, MCBC, which stands for Montgomery County Black Caucus. And that code is now on every script that is generated in Montgomery County, so that every campaign in Montgomery County has the activist code in the script. So in coordination with the Montgomery County Democratic Black Caucus, we would gather the names and contact information of all Montgomery County campaigns. There were 42 candidate campaigns that we had to work with in order to assist those state organizers with assigning access to their scripts. So that's what we had to do when we first initiated this in the first year. There were 42 campaigns that were going on in the 2022 primary, and there were local, state, state house, and state senate campaigns, and there were also national campaigns that were going on for, I believe it was governor, and it may have been a senate or some house seats that were open that year. So we had to create also activist codes with each of those campaigns: the House, Pennsylvania House, Pennsylvania Senate, and the national coordinated campaigns. The national campaign needed to get national approval, which we got. That actually was, as I say, the most difficult thing was to get the activist code, set up locally. That was more difficult than getting it implemented at the state or the national level. Once we had the activist code, it wasn't too difficult to get those other campaigns to buy in. Once they bought in and they got approvals at the national level, they were able to incorporate the MCBC activist code into their campaigns at the state level and for national campaigns. So the information that you're seeing on your screen now, these are the people that I had to work with to get that activist code implemented. We had to work with the state Senate executive director, the gubernatorial senatorial campaign coordinated director, and also the House. I don't have that on there. Yeah, I do here. The House field director for the Pennsylvania House, and then the data director for the state to actually put the code out for all of those campaigns to use at the state level. And as a result, the campaigns in Montgomery County now utilize the activist code in door-to-door surveys while campaigning and collecting data. And when that's done, that data is collected, it is imported into Vote Builder. So that is the process. Oh, just a little background. When I just want to mention that I have done presentations of our Black voter identification and documentation process with all 15 areas in Montgomery County. So I have gone to committee meetings for each of the 15 areas over the last 2 years. It's taken 2 years to accomplish that. So I've done 16 presentations with 15 areas. And the response that we have gotten from committee people has been generally extremely positive. They appreciate what we're doing, and they are willing to help. They understand that we need correct data in order to maximize the what Black voters are doing for the Democratic Party. So I just want to give you a little background. This is a part of the presentation that I do have done with each of these areas. It sets the background for why this is necessary. Over the past decade, from 2010 to 2020, the population of Montgomery County grew by roughly 7%, from 800,000 to 850,000. During that same time frame, the Black population of Montgomery County grew by 18%. All right. General population 7%, Black population 18%. Up from roughly 70,000 in 2010 to roughly 82,000 in 2020. The Black population during that time also increased as a percentage of the total population in Montgomery County, going from 8.7% in 2010 to almost 10% in 2020. I'm sure it's 20%, it's at least 10% today. So what that shows us is that Montgomery County's Black population over the past decade grew both in absolute numbers and as a percentage of the total population. But the Montgomery County Democratic Party has done a lousy job in reaching out to the Black community. It has failed and missed an opportunity to leverage a population that naturally votes for Democrats. And we are not going to allow that to continue. So what our initiative intends to do, by identifying and documenting Black voters in Montgomery County, we will correct the failures of the past by putting in place a system that over time provides organizations like ours with the information they need to reach Black voters in Montgomery County, using that information to do things from voter appreciation to GOTV to candidate and volunteer recruitment and much, much more. So I want to share one more thing with you. I want you to see what it is that the voter, that the committee people are using when they're identifying Black voters. This is what there's and when the committee people are at the door, they're either using their smartphone or they're using a paper script to document for Vote Builder what information they're getting from the voters. So for anyone that is a committee person, you'll recognize this. This is what the minivan looks like. This is the Vote Builder's script when you're at the door. And these are the an example of the type of questions that committee people are expected to ask the voter. The last one here is the Black voter question. MCBC outreach. Would you be interested in learning more about the MCBC? What we are telling the committee people when they're at the door is when you identify a Black voter or someone who appears to be Black, they don't have to, we're not asking them to screen for their Blackness at the door. Okay, we follow up with every person that's identified with the activist code. So the Black Caucus follows up. All we want them to do is if they see someone that appears to be Black, that they answer this question, yes. Or if they know the person is Black, they just answer it yes. And then that automatically puts the activist code on the voter record. And that is it. That's the process. So I'm going to stop here. Hopefully clarify any questions that anyone has about either the process or the activist code. Any questions? The rationale for why we're doing it?
Now, Mike, has that been added to Vote Builder?
No,
It hasn't been.
no. Well, for the different state, HDCC, the Senate Campaign Committee, they all have that ability because, we worked on that one a long time ago and they implemented it. That's no problem there. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to roll this entire program out around the entire state. And so OC, when, volunteered, and I think I recruited him to talk about how we're going to roll this thing out. Once it's been proven in Montgomery County, now we can roll it out to the entire state. And the executive director, actually, it was, I think we had a presentation last year, and I think the person, Sharice Street, said, this sounds like a great thing. He was able to actually talk to the person, Jason Salas, and they agreed that this is a great idea, and we want to launch this around the entire state. So I want to send a video of this, talk to each one of the chairs for each one of the locations around in our 67 counties. We know there's certain areas that got Black people. There's certain areas that got a small amount of Black people, but we need to identify all of them so we can have a consistent message and do some really good outreach. Okay, so
yep.
Hopefully,
if I could just clarify,
Yep.
just to clarify,
yep.
This has been implemented in Montgomery County.
Yep.
It's for campaigns that operate within Montgomery County. It has been implemented for them statewide and on a national level, but the activist code is active for Montgomery County.
Okay.
So each county would need to, get their data person for Vote Builder to agree to implement the activist code within their county in order to use something like this, or to put in, or to implement a process similar to this. So for now, it's strictly Montgomery County.
Yeah.
Campaigns that operate within Montgomery County, they use the code. They have access, the ability to use the code. They've been given that ability to have it included on their scripts that are generated for Montgomery County.
Okay.
Can we stop the share so I can see if there are any questions? If you have any questions, let me see. Okay. Matt Muncy always has a good question, but he didn't raise his hand yet. So let me ask you a question. When you mentioned that one of the challenges that we had to deal with originally was trying to work with the different campaigns for them to understand the benefit of doing this. What did you discover the challenges were to get them to do it? And then what were the results after you got? Did it improve? Did it make it better? Share with that.
Well, as I said, the difficult part was the first part, and that was to get the local county committee to put the activist code, to implement the activist code, and then to attach that activist code to all scripts, and to agree to do that for all campaigns going forward. Once that was done, there was really not a whole lot of pushback at the state level from the House Democratic Committee or the Senate Democratic Committee or any of the campaigns. They understood that it was to their benefit for organizations like the Black Caucus to be able to reach out to Black voters. They understood what we were doing and how important it was. So the campaigns were not the issue. Now at the federal level, there was there were just approvals that had to be um, obtained at the national level. So that was the only delay there. But the approvals came through without any problem. So I would say it really depends on the politics. Uh, quite honestly, I think that local Democratic committees like ours, they don't want to share power. And for Black people to be able to communicate with each other, um, especially out in areas where there aren't that many of us, uh, is dangerous to them. I think they see that as dangerous because then we have, the power of our block. We're able to communicate directly with our voters on issues that affect us directly, and we can circumvent going through the local Democratic committee and reaching out to Black voters. In the past, the only way you could really reach Black voters was to have a Black event. Okay, to have an event, that invited, Black people to the event. And then what would happen is, it was always the same people. This way, you're able to reach all voters, regardless of how active they are. We are able to reach all Black voters. And I think it would have put us in a position to do, put in place other strategies like the family initiative. I mean, that's, again, if you know where the families are, you know who they are, and you know they're Black, that puts us in a great position. Let's face it, information is power. If there's one thing that we should have learned in this day and age, is that information is power. It's the equivalent of money. Well, I'm not interested in money, and neither is the Black Caucus. We're interested in empowerment. And this allows us to empower our community, no matter where we are and no matter how few we are or how many we are. As long as we know who we are, we can reach out to each other. And we have identified, and again, it's taken us 2 years to roll this out because this county is so large and it has so many committees. And for each one of the presentations, you have to, set up a presentation. You got to reach out to the area leader. You've got to get them to agree to bring you into a meeting. And then you have to schedule that meeting and do that presentation. So it's taken 2 years to do 16 presentations. But we're close to documenting 1,000 Black voters in Montgomery County. And now that the ball is rolling, that number should increase dramatically. In fact, in the last 6 months, I'd say we doubled the number of individuals that were documented using the activist code.
Wow. Well, see, I really want to thank you for all the effort that you put out. I could tell you, working with data and working with Vote Builder as a Vote Builder administrator, and you and I had many telephone calls and many conversations about trying to get this thing done. And you've just had a Herculean effort to actually make this thing happen. And so I'm so happy it happened, and I'm recruiting you to help roll this thing out county by county. I know you can do it. We need that help. Okay. Are there any okay? Are there any additional questions?
Well, I hope that means I did a decent job. If no one has any questions, but okay.
Okay. Well, I think you did. I think you did an excellent job. Okay.
Thank you.
So I can tell you this, it is now 7:45. We started on time. And we were actually thinking this was going to be an hour and a half, and I think it's around an hour and a half right now. So with that, I want to tell everybody I appreciate you for showing up for this series. We had the very first one presentation, and we talked about what problems were. And it's always important when you got a problem to talk about what the solution is. And I want to absolutely say the Family Empowerment Plan is the solution to the problem. If we implement that with the use of Vote Builder and being able to identify our Black voters and working on straightening out the database, we will be unstoppable. And I think that's something that the Democratic Party should get behind and should believe that if we have the good Black voters and they're educated and we're sending the right messages out, we could really win as the Democratic Party. Because without us, what I say again, without us, what does it mean? Will we win? They need us to do that. Black people vote at a higher rate than other people do. Black men vote at 93% for the Democratic Party, 93% for the Democratic Party. Black women vote at 98% for the Democratic Party. So we are the base. And by using these tools, by using this messaging, and being able to roll this thing out in Pennsylvania, we will be unstoppable. And I want to thank these gentlemen for making this presentation today. I want to thank everybody for showing up. And we have recorded this in its entirety. And this will be ready for presentation at the PA Dems Facebook page within 3 or 4 days. I want to thank everybody for coming out again. Once again, Brother James, is anything else you want to say?
No, I'm pretty good right now. Just thanks for the opportunity to to present this to the group.
Okay, thank you. And gentlemen, thank you so much for your wisdom and the things that you've done. Thank you. We appreciate you, right? And thank you so much from the statewide Democratic Black Caucus and all the things you guys have done in your areas. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.